Chapter 1. A decade before rebirth. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Doctors in spotless white garbs darted in and out of the wards of a steel building with floors as clean and shiny as mirrors. This facility was at the colony's research institutions in the new area outside of the Qingyang suburb. Sitting anxiously outside the waiting room was a group of fresh-faced teenagers looking terrified and excited at the same time. Ding! Ding! Dong! Number 2318, Qin Feng. Please head to injection area 3. It's my turn. The young man got up quickly. He was so nervous that his legs were unsteady, and he tripped over himself, falling to the ground with a loud thud. Anyone could tell just how bad that fall was. Ah! Qin Feng! Zhou Hao shouted as he watched this horrifying spectacle unfold, hurrying over to help his friend. To his surprise, Qin Feng was unconscious. What the hell? What kind of joke is this, Qin Feng? How can you pass out at such an important time? Wake up. It's your turn to get the awakening elixir injections. In the year 2200, the world had undergone a drastic change. Mankind, after 2,000 years of reign, had now fallen the bottom of the food chain. But because sharp ability users and mighty ancient warriors as such existed among humankind, they were able to sustain Lebensraum. It was also all about the premise of an awakened ability user or warrior getting the injection of awakening potion at the age of 16. This meant that, at the point in time where he was in the opportunity to experience a meteoric rise in his life, Qin Feng lost consciousness instead. Zhou Hao was in a flap. Ding, ding dong. The loudspeaker chimed again, and an echoey voice hollered, Number 2318, Qin Feng. Please head to injection area 3. The reverberating noise would only add a splitting headache to Qin Feng's already chaotic mind. I'm not dead. A thought flashed in his mind. How was he alive? When he defeated that unidentified beast king, he had died with it. The voices in his ears were starting to sound more precise. Ah! You know what, Chen Ming, just come here and help me get Qin Feng there. He still has to get his injection even if he's unconscious. Zhou Hao lamented to the person next to him. This had Qin Feng taken aback. Chen Ming. How could it be? Why was Chen Ming here? Was he the one who had brought all these dangers here? But who was this other person fussing over him then? Why did it sound so familiar, so distinct as if it was there in his mind and yet, so far away? Next to Qin Feng and Zhou Hao, Chen Ming's eyes glinted. Qin Feng, Chen Ming, and Zhou Hao were the top 3 students in mid-tier college. The only thing was, Chen Ming knew that he was never going to be as good as Qin Feng or Zhou Hao. His fists curled up momentarily. His palms were sweaty, and his eyes were gleaming. Zhou Hao, I don't think that's a good idea. The doctor will blame us. Also, we should get someone to take a look at Qin Feng, just in case he's really hurt. Those were all words of concern, but in reality, he wanted Qin Feng to miss his injection. But, this injection is a big thing. Zhou Hao was starting to panic and was a little out of his wits. Let's bring him aside so he can rest. Chen Ming walked over and knelt to pick Qin Feng up. No, the young man said hoarsely, still a little hazy. No one knew what Qin Feng had experienced while he was unconscious. Was it just a dream of grandeur, or was it reality? All Qin Feng knew was that the emotions sustained from the additional past decade were all too clear in his memories. He pushed himself off the ground. The innocence on his face had disappeared, becoming more profound. There was even a twinkle of sharpness in his gaze. Chen Ming froze as a chill ran down his spine, making him feel as if he was standing naked before Qin Feng, all his secrets exposed, and Qin Feng seeing through all that grime in his heart. But it was only a fleeting moment. Qin Feng looked away from Chen Ming and looked at Zhou Hao. There was a speck of red in his eyes. In his memories, Zhou Hao, this guy who was like his own brother, had died because of him when they were 16. But here he was, standing in front of him, perfectly fine and guileless, looking like he was indeed 16. Then suddenly, Qin Feng understood it all. He was reborn, back to the time when he was 16, the day of the awakening elixir injection. Ding! Dong! Ding! Dong! Number 2318, Qin Feng. Please head to injection area 3. I have to go. Qin Feng nodded at Zhou Hao. This time, his footsteps were steady, not the hasty scuttle he had stumbled out earlier on, and there was even a domineering air about it. Since the heavens had given him once more chance, he would not let the events in the previous life continue to happen. Qin Feng curled his hands into a fist and walked to the injection area. A tube of turquoise substance was injected into his veins. The awakening elixir will awaken your abilities and strengthen your talents. The stronger the talent, the sooner the awakening. In 1 month, your perceptions of the surroundings, strength, and speed, would grow exponentially. Even without the extra abilities, you will at least have the lowest level of a good physique. I advise you to increase training during this period. Thank you, Doctor. Qin Feng took in a deep breath of air. He could already sense an unusual aura emerging from the depths of his body. But he made no mention of it, even doing his best to conceal his aura to keep it from spreading. A smile crept across his face. The stronger the talent, the faster its awakening. It was only 1 minute after the injection, and his abilities were already emerging. What kind of talent was this? Unfortunately, in his previous life, before he could even begin to enjoy this talent, he was persecuted, then put through a painful experiment that stripped him of his abilities before getting thrown into the shark-infested waters. While he managed to survive, he was incapable of confronting the enemy. He was practically useless then. But now, perhaps he might not be able to go head-to-head against that organization for the time being, but their henchman, he would not let off the hook. As he was pondering over that thought, Chen Ming appeared in front of him. Qin Feng smiled knowingly at him, making him shudder. What was it? Then why was Qin Feng so strange today? Why did it feel so dangerous? Chen Ming couldn't put the finger on those muddled feelings. So, how was it, Qin Feng? Were there any reactions? Zhou Hao asked excitedly. No, Qin Feng shook his head. Zhou Hao looked disappointed. His shoulders were sagging inches lower as he sighed. Whatever. If the 3 of us show no response, then others probably won't either. Let's go back and continue training. Let's go. The 3 left the building. Qin Feng had not been back here for many years. This was just one of the large colonies in the outskirts of Qingyang, a sprawling cesspool of reinforced concrete buildings, so suffocating that even breathing within its cramped confines deemed a challenge. Hovering a few hundred meters in the skies above was a giant floating machine that bore a resemblance to a satellite. The object in question turned out to be a space stabilization device, the only thing that guaranteed the safety of the colony. It should be happening soon, Qin Feng thought. And then, without warning, the piece of space equipment suddenly burst into flames. Chapter 2. Space Stabilizing Device. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The space stabilizing device above their heads was a thing the people relied on to survive, the most powerful weapon protecting the colony. But now that the machine had malfunctioned, the waves invisible to the naked eye that stabilized space was gradually disappearing. Everyone who noticed this breakdown was alarmed at first before breaking out into a panicked frenzy. What is happening to the space stabilizing device? Is it broken? Zhou Hao asked, his voice trembling. Does that mean? Before Chen Ming could even complete his sentence, an alarm on their wristwatches started blaring loudly. Warning! Warning! A space rift is opening in 100 meters. Unidentified organisms are about to appear. A tear in space. This was the culprit. The thing responsible for the fall of mankind, the reason humankind had fallen from the dominant force of nature to the bottom tier on the food chain. There was a set deepness in Qin Feng's eyes. His skinny and frail back had now straightened up, and from head to toe, he was on guard, neither shocked nor alarmed. That was because he had come prepared. In his previous life, the exact situation had happened at this exact time. Since Qin Feng had been unconscious, Zhou Hao had decided to bring him inside for the injection. Once he had also received his dose, he had slumped Qin Feng over his shoulders and carried him out. By the time he had left the research institution, he was already awake. However, now, the space-stabilizing device was damaged, a rift had torn in space, the ferocious beast attacked, and Zhou Hao had died while saving Qin Feng. As for where Chen Ming was at that time, Qin Feng was just trying to recall that information when, in reality, Chen Ming presented him with the answer. Run! Better run fast! Chen Ming shouted before quickly disappearing. They were all students who had undergone mid-tier education. Each one of them came with able bodies and respectable combat power. It only took Chen Ming 2 seconds to put about 10 meters of distance between them. Qin Feng's expression grew cold. If this was the previous experience, then he was a total joke back then. Zhou Hao had died for him, and here was Chen Ming walking away so casually, downplaying the abandonment of his brothers. That wretch! Zhou Hao was also stunned for a moment. Then, propelled by Chen Ming's reaction, he too decided it was best to run. Hurry! Let's run! He grabbed Qin Feng by the arm and pulled. But Qin Feng did not budge. Realizing his friend had become motionless, Zhou Hao turned around, his face crumpled in fear and distress, forehead lined with beads of cold sweat. Qin Feng, are you not feeling well? Can you still run? Hurry, we have to go. How about I carry you? Zhou Hao babbled, not waiting for Qin Feng's answer, ready to flee. And rightly so too, for they were brothers. Qin Feng, on the other hand, felt sharp stabbing heat shoot down his chest like a volcanic eruption, causing a stinging pain in his heart. I'm all right. I'm good. I'm terrific, in fact. Thank goodness the gods gave me a second chance so that I can redeem all of this. I've lost a hypocrite, but at least I still have a true brother. We can't go there. We don't know where the tear is exactly, so the safest place right now is the research institute. Qin Feng reckoned. Zhou Hao was stunned for a moment but quickly regained his composure. We have other classmates in there too, god damn it. Hurry, let's go back. The guy had always been like that. Warm and friendly, always looking out for other people. This, to Qin Feng, who had suffered and struggled for a decade before his rebirth, was absolutely invaluable. You couldn't put a price on those things. Let's go. Qin Feng started to run. Although the demeaning prospects of a weak and small body bothered him somewhat, it was brimming with vigor and energy. They turned around the corner of an alley and out into the main road. The drivers in the cars were honking at each other. Being so busy trying to get away, they rammed into each other in uncoordinated panic, causing traffic to come to a standstill. Just then, in the sky 3 meters above the road, a tier gradually formed. Within it was pitch-black darkness, and surrounding it was a ring of silver light, the materialization of space elements. Rift. Zhou Hao looked terrified. No matter how many times they had learned about it in school, he was petrified, this being his first time seeing the actual thing. No one knew what kind of creatures were lurking behind the crack, waiting for the slightest opportunity to pounce out. It could be the devil himself, for all we knew, coming to destroy the world. The rift was expanding ever so slowly. It was only about half a meter long and 30 centimeters wide, but the potent disorientation from something so alien in nature had the people on the road screaming their heads off, leaving their cars behind and running for their lives. The tear did not stop expanding. And then, all of a sudden, from the midst of the rift, a figure appeared. It looked like a soft, skinned, and slightly bloated baby. Bathed in a strange yellow and green color, a terrible stench came out from its hair. The infant crawled with much difficulty out of the crack and then dropped down onto the ground. Falling from such heights should have caused death, or at the very least, injuries. The baby's arms and legs, however, were still mobile. Picking itself up, it raised its massive head, allowing people to see what the grotesque incarnation looked like. All right. That was not a baby. It was a monster, one with a pair of humongous semi-convex scarlet eyeballs, disproportionately larger than its deformed head. Its unnaturally vast mouth resembling a demented clown stretched far to its ears, revealing a mouthful of razor-sharp teeth. And unlike a human, its teeth had the sharpness of a wolf, easily able to tear through the toughest of flesh. They were man-eating creatures. It's a razor-fanged infant, the crowd screamed in utter, unabashed horror. A razor-fanged infant, according to the federal textbook, was the lowest category of G3 monsters, but it had a very special trait: it lived in a group. So, as the first razor-fanged infant landed, the second and third appeared right after. These razor-fanged infants' crawl may look clumsy, but whenever a prey caught their large eyes, they would suddenly pick up speed and leap into the air, viciously tearing at their victims' throats with their sharp teeth. Arg! A man screamed. He swiftly drew the weapon strapped on his waist and pointed it at the infant abomination. Bang! The unmistakable sound of gunfire echoed in the streets. The already chaotic road had now turned into hell. 4 to 5 razor-fanged infants were killing people, freely devouring them on the streets like wolves among a flock of sheep. One of them pounced on Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao's eyes widened, and his mind went completely blank as he scrambled to find a way to defend himself. Like it was in all textbooks, they were merely unsubstantial, general bullshit that gave its reader little to imagine what a real situation would be like. The grappling techniques they had learned were not fast enough to cope with the creature's devilish speed and tiny stature. Of course, this was also due to the constraints of strength. Even a 16-year-old teenager who had just awakened his abilities and force was only at G1 tier. At that very moment, a pair of skinny yet strong hands shoved Zhou Hao aside hard. Zhou Hao recognized that silhouette. It was Qin Feng. Chapter 3. Creatures from the Rift. Razor-fanged infants. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Qin Feng pushed Zhou Hao aside and swung a fist at the razor-fanged infant. He was much slower than the monster, yet as if by coincidence, when he threw the punch, the razor-fanged infant came towards its head first. Bam! It sounded like the squishing of a grand, big, juicy watermelon. Red and grayish brain matter splattered everywhere. Qin Feng frowned at this, not because the scene was too gruesome but the flesh on his knuckles that had been ripped off by the force of that strike. Too weak. Qin Feng could not remember the last time he possessed such a frail and puny body. But when he narrowed his eyes slightly, his tea-colored iris darkened as dark as night, an invisible strength came through the monster infant's body into his. The wound on his hand quickly turned into a scab. It shed off, completely healing itself as if he had never been injured in the first place. This was Qin Feng's talent. Absorption. Qin Feng's expression was a mixture of surprise and excitement. He recalled how in his past life, he thought that he was invincible as his abilities had been awakened. He had been so excited that he had announced it to the world. In the end, his talent had been robbed from him and was only left with the ability to absorb dead monsters' self-strengthening abilities. That little bit of power had barely helped him to survive. Right now, his talent was not destroyed. Did that mean that he was much stronger? Qin Feng could feel that after he absorbed the energy from the razor-fanged infant, his physical body had gotten a lot tougher. A total of 10 razor-fanged infants could at least boost his physique to G2 tier. If that was the case, what was he waiting for then? Qin Feng had not felt so excited in such a long time now. When they saw their kind getting killed, the razor-fanged infants charged angrily towards the attacker from afar. Two monsters flanked Qin Feng. One on the left and the other on the right. Qin Feng shuffled backward, evading the attempt to close in on him. He reached into his waist and pulled out a small dagger less than 15 centimeters, and took a calculated slash at one of the razor-fanged infants. Arg! The monster's throat was sliced open, and its tiny body dropped to the ground, its neck and head clinging to each other only by a layer of skin. Fresh, warm blood spilled all over the ground. Qin Feng raised a leg and kicked the second razor-fanged baby, sending it sliding 3 meters backward. So, as to not waste this opportunity, Qin Feng threw himself at the creature and swished the dagger downwards, plunging it into the razor-fanged infant's chest, not stopping until he could feel the blade hit the hard ground. One of the razor-fanged infants let out a shrill cry that resembled a cat yowling. The noise, which also sounded a little bit like a baby crying, drew another group of infants toward Qin Feng. The latter remained composed as he made some calculations on how to tackle the creature sequentially. His rich experience in battling was more than enough to help him combat these unsightly abominations of nature. The only thing was, his body could not catch up with his rhythm. All around him, the monsters were slowly closing on him, ready to tear him apart. Then, it pounced without warning. Crunch! One of them sank their teeth into Qin Feng, sending a blinding shock in the thick soup of his brain. Paralyzing pain in his punctured calf seared through the entire leg. But that was not the scariest part. At the same time, another one of the creatures jumped for his neck. Danger was approaching. No. Here it was. Qin Feng raised a hand in an attempt to shield his neck with his arm. The infant's razor-sharp fangs dug into the flesh of Qin Feng's arm. At least his neck was protected. Die! Qin Feng roared, slamming his arm onto the floor. The infant let out a piercing cry, as bones and asphalt came crashing together in unholy matrimony. The beast on Qin Feng's arm was squashed. Another one of the creatures saw the chance and leaped. Its attack was surgical, the position it had chosen perfect. Its mouth opened so wide as if about to swallow Qin Feng's head whole. Qin Feng's pupils dilated. Just then, a snow-white baseball came to the rescue, knocking down that razor-fang's infant. Zhou Hao appeared in front of Qin Feng. Although his body was shaking violently, he did not stop, swinging around and striking the monster latched on his friend's calf. Let go, beast! Monster! Let go! However, he controlled his exertion of force in fear of hurting Qin Feng. After a few violent thumps and only after the razor-fanged infant's head was finally smashed in, did Qin Feng shake off the monster. The injuries were healing quickly, but, on the surface, Qin Feng was gravely injured. Zhou Hao trembled uncontrollably, bursting with adrenaline, face flushed, and gulping in large mouthfuls of fresh air. Such intense, unstopping action was all too much to bear. When he turned around to look at the wounds on Qin Feng's body, what he saw left him in shock. Qin Feng. Are you all right? No problem. Qin Feng shook his head. BL.net. The patrol team was finally here, dutifully dispersing the crowd and slowly retaking the entire street. Should we leave? Zhou Hao did not know what to do in a situation like this. No need. Qin Feng answered. It's just this one rift. Now that the patrol team is here, it should be a lot safer. Indeed, it was just one rift. But in the previous life, Qin Feng had not been around. The razor-fanged infants had spread out all over the place like a plague and killed swathes of people, Zhou Hao included. Thank goodness, all of that was over. The flames on the space stabilizer had been extinguished. All up and running, a silver ray exploded from it. Then, before Qin Feng and Zhou Hao's eyes, the rift began to grow smaller until it gradually disappeared. This was the first time Zhou Hao had such a phenomenon, leaving his jaw hanging open in amazement. Beep. Beep. Street number 12 is cleared. Head. Count in progress. 13 deaths in total. Still counting casualties. Secured. The patrol team passed them by, grimly confirming the death toll. Qin Feng calmly watched all of them, not making a single move. On the contrary, Zhou Hao's initial excitement had disappeared, and his face had turned a ghostly white. And just like that, the flame of life had been extinguished. In such a brief period, 13 people had lost their lives. If it had not been for Qin Feng, more people would have died. A man wearing the patrol team's medal over his chest walked up to Qin Feng. The patrol team was the police in the colony. As humans were such destructive beings, whenever a fight broke out, it would, in all likeliness, lead to a one-sided slaughter where the strong killed the weak. That was how the patrol team emerged, maintaining law and order to protect the very core of the colony's safety. That being said, the colony was, at times, not a particularly safe place either. Did you kill these 2 razor-fanged infants? Not bad at all. That sure looked promising, young man. The man smiled. He was not very tall, about 1.7 meters and a little mellow. But Qin Feng would never look down on him. Chapter 4. Profiteering Merchant at the Imperial Capital. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. A logo with the words F1 appeared above the medal on this person's chest, which meant that this person's strength was at least 10 tiers above Qin Feng's and Zhou Hao's. Of course, he would not have counted for much when compared to the Qin Feng in the previous life. One other thing was that, besides this F.tier logo, this person also had a medal of the patrol team's vice-captain. The patrol team had the highest authority in a colony. How could anyone blatantly disregard a high-ranking officer? No. This is all Qin Feng, said Zhou Hao, not wanting to wait for the powerful people from the patrol team to start asking questions. Instead, he immediately attempted to set the record straight, not wanting to take any credit at all. The officer, with all his experience, knew that it was all Qin Feng's handiwork. The surveillance video had told him that already. Not bad. Is your name Qin Feng? I'm Xue Xingfu, captain of 12th Street in the colony. Qin Feng cocked his eyebrows when he heard the name. Xue Xingfu. This person would become a notoriously crooked businessman 10 years later. Who knew that he was actually a vice-captain 10 years ago? How are you? Qin Feng nodded. Xue Xingfu grinned at Qin Feng, his eyes glistening and his voice gentle. Thank you for your help. In one sentence, he had reduced Qin Feng's matter of life or death combat to mere help. Whenever a rift appeared threatening the safety of the colony, those who extinguished the threat would receive a special reward. What more a dangerous thing like this? Qin Feng had no intention of exposing the guy. We were just defending ourselves. Otherwise, we would have died as well. Xue Xingfu maintained his smile, but deep inside, he wondered why Qin Feng was so calm. Too calm, in fact. It's like that, you can collect the fangs and heart's blood of the razor-fanged infants and sell them for a nice price, but because considering you're so young, if you sell them on your own, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't make a profit. Qin Feng smiled thoughtfully at that. If it was Zhou Hao who was standing there, he might have fallen for Xue Xingfu's trick. Fangs and heart's blood may not sell for much, but an entire body could be counted as a significant contribution. If he wanted to, Xue Xingfu could have actually claimed that he was the one that killed all of them. These were all behind the scenes, under-the-counter dealings. In this world, the strong wielded the scepter. The ones who were powerful had a say in everything. Qin Feng did not beat around the bush either and said, 8 bodies for 8 G.tier strengthening potions. Xue Xingfu's smile froze, his gleamy pleasant demeanor replaced by one of seriousness. The price of G.tier strengthening potions was not too high. One tube only costs about 10,000 yuan, but in the colony, the average wage a month hovered around a very humble 1,000 yuan. 8 tubes of that potion would cost 80,000. As an official, however, Xue Xingfu could purchase them at an insider's price, saving himself half the cost. 000 yuan was the exact amount that Qin Feng had received as a reward for killing the razor-fanged infants. If that was true, wasn't that too much of a coincidence? Either way, you won't make a loss. Qin Feng added. Xue Xingfu was about to probe him further, but his questions were already answered. It appeared that this kid really did know things. Fine. You got it. Then, thank you, Captain Xue. Qin Feng answered in a happy, congratulatory tone. Ha ha ha, there's no need to thank me. You're not bad all. If you come across something good next time, you can come see me. Xue Xingfu added Qin Feng to his communicator. He might have use of it in the future. If this boy could kill razor-fanged infants now, he might just be powerful enough in the future. He might just be useful in the time to come. Xue Xingfu might not be a merchant now, but he already had the potential of a successful businessman. Xin Feng gave half of the potions he had received to Zhou Hao. The latter merely stared at the thing that they never even dared imagine having. Why did you ask for so many? Aren't these things ridiculously costly? Zhou Hao asked. Members of the patrol team get them for half price. Wow. Being part of the patrol team sounds great. Governments will always be governments. It'll be great if we could make the team next time. You can join if you want to, of course. Qin Feng nodded in eagerness. Zhou Hao had died for him before. Now that Qin Feng was reborn, he would make sure to treat this brother well. As for that Chen Ming. Perhaps human hearts are fickle. Perhaps after losing a brother, Qin Feng wanted to have a friendship so bad that his eyes were blinded to the fact that he was, for all intents and purposes, a wretch. Wait, Qin Feng, take these 2 back. I don't need so many. Also, I only killed 2. If you hadn't saved me, I would have died just now. Zhou Hao warmly pushed 2 vials into Qin Feng's hands. You can earn it back once your abilities or ancient warrior talents have awakened. Qin Feng gave them back. These potions were not very useful to him since his abilities had already been awakened. He did not just dump everything to his friend only to avoid raising Zhou Hao's suspicion. Qin Feng did not plan to tell anyone about his rebirth. Alright, brother. Once I've awakened, I would even buy you tier 1s if that's what you want. Zhou Hao said, thumping his own chest. Of course, it was just a young man's irresponsible crowing, filled with hot air. Only a few tier strengthening potions were issued every year. As the pair chatted on, the ambulance finally arrived at the scene to help the injured. Because Qin Feng helped fight off the razor-fanged infants, he was given a hero's treatment. It's alright. I can do it myself. Go ahead and tend to the severely injured. I'm fine. Qin Feng stopped the nurse tending to him and picked up a bit of gauze to bandage his wounds. When the nurse saw how deft his movement was, she nodded and left to help others. They couldn't afford to be distracted on the battlefield. For every extra minute saved was another minute that could be used to save someone's life. On top of that, special ability users in the colony were rough and tough. This surface wound was nothing. No one knew that Qin Feng's special ability allowed him to heal his wounds rapidly. Since the hastily set up triage tent by the ambulance team was tight and cramped, Zhou Hao did not come along. He waited outside for Qin Feng, and when he saw his friend's arm and calf wrapped in thick, blood-stained bandages, he could not help but feel sorry for him. Qin Feng. Surely, a miserable day for you. Zhou Hao muttered. You fell down and blacked out this morning, then you were bitten by the razor-fanged infants. Should you go find a light ability user and ask for a blessing or something? Are they that easy to find? Qin Feng chuckled. He did not think that he was unlucky today. In fact, he felt extremely fortunate. How many people in history could start afresh, respawning like in some video game after they had died? Alright, I'm just saying, you know. Zhou Hao smiled. Oh, right, I have something I need to do. You should go back to school first. Qin Feng stopped suddenly. Qin Feng. Are you still going to work? Don't go yet. This is the best time for awakening. You don't want to delay it. Zhou Hao's statement caught Qin Feng by surprise. He pondered for a bit before remembering that he did indeed have a job 10 years ago. Zhou Hao's parents were still around and healthy. He even had a brother. While they were considered of average status in the colony, they had jobs that paid them well enough to raise Zhou Hao comfortably, albeit, minus some comforts in life. Chapter 5. T3 Combat Uniform. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Qin Feng's thoughts drifted back and remembered that he had quit the job so that he would have enough time to train after his awakening. Only, he never told Zhou Hao about this. Qin Feng and Chen Ming were both orphans where the latter's parents had tragically died in a beast horde attack. Owing to that, he would receive a 500 yuan hero's orphan subsidy every month. As for Qin Feng's parents, on the other hand, no one knew what had happened to them. He was left outside the door or an orphanage. Because newborns were the hope of mankind, and humans could only administer the awakening injections at 16, raising orphans became a matter of extreme importance for the current Chinese alliance. A caveat, however, was that it would be impossible if the orphans wanted extra money to enrich in their lives. Qin Feng had to work to make any extra money he needed. As a result, he did not have to make up excuses for Zhou Hao. I will at least have to inform the management. Don't worry. It won't delay anything. I have to go. Qin Feng said, waving to his friend, making sure to take a different road. Zhou Hao watched Qin Feng's back, feeling that this friend of his had become much calmer and more practical, as if he had suddenly grown up. Undoubtedly, after today's awakening injection, the rift, and the razor-fanged infants attack that almost took their lives, how could they not grow up? Qin Feng was unaware of what Zhou Hao was thinking. If he had known, he would have surely laughed a bitter laugh. His experience spanned not just a single day but 10 whole years. When he was sure that Zhou Hao wasn't trailing him, Qin Feng slowed his pace down. The Qingbei New District Colony was his birthplace. This was not within Qingyang but on the outskirt of the outskirts. It might have looked as if it was accessible from all directions, but even the tall buildings could not hide the fact that this was all but a slum, a terrible living environment. There was not enough land here, and dangerous beasts overran the place, roaming around as they pleased. Far away from the main city of Qingyang, security was poor. To make matters worse, their most powerful ability user was only at E.tier. Even their space stabilization device had been in disrepair for years. That time after he was captured, he never returned to Qingyang, causing his memories of the place to be a little blurry. After strolling down 3 streets, Qin Feng finally found the shop he was looking for, an outdoor combat supply store. The store was huge, at least in this colony. In particular, this store belonged to the Wanzhong Group franchise. In the shop, a woman in her 30s sitting inside the shop sized up Qin Feng. The moment she realized the pathetic state he was in, she cast him a look of utter disgust. Little son, go serve the customer. Remember to clean the floor after. Ah, yes, manager, shouted a male clerk named Little Son, who came over to attend to Qin Feng. As for the floor cleaning remark, it was clear that the manager felt that Qin Feng was going to soil the store. Qin Feng shot the woman a frosty look. No one had treated him in such an uncivilized way for so many years. Having just been reborn, however, he was swamped with too many things for him to do anything about it. She was just a narrow-minded woman. Nothing worth fussing over about. Excuse me, mister. Are you here to buy or sell? Little Son asked politely, secretly perplexed. Qin Feng was covered in wounds, which meant that he had most likely just returned from a battle. But he was not carrying any spoils with him. If that was the case, he was probably not here to sell materials. As for purchasing power. Now how could someone not even wearing an ability user's logo be able to afford the store's merchandise? It would seem that the lady manager was in fact, a good judge of character. Do you take these? Qin Feng took out the 4 vials of the G.Tier strengthening potion. The potion was a pale red color, and the vials were only about the size of his pinky. One simply needed to examine the official stamp on the label to know whether or not it was the real deal. Their shop did not trade with drugs, but the G.Tier strengthening potion was an essential item. One look was enough for Little Son to tell that they were real. This looked like a great business opportunity, too great to let slip just because of prejudice and innuendo. Little Son caught his breath. We do. We do. He picked up one of the vials and examined it in the fashion of an expert. Here in our store, we buy these at a 20% discount of the market price. That'll be 32,000 yuan for 4. Once this purchase was completed, he could earn a commission of 300. What fortuitous fortune! Qin Feng nodded, surveying the products the store had to offer. 1 T3 combat suit 1 dagger, a crossbow with 30 arrows, a combat bag pack, and an outdoor utensil set. There were so few elites in the entire colony that most of them ordinary folk who would never choose to purchase something of such high quality, such as the T3 combat suit. All right. Please provide the size that you want. 170. Qin Feng looked at his scrawny body, managing to crack a bitter smile. Right now, he was only 1.7 meters tall and painfully bony. It was so different from the one he had before rebirth. Once he was done with all these, it looked like the time was nigh to work hard and develop his body. Great. Little Son hurried around the shop, bringing a T3 combat suit for Qin Feng to try on, then picking up other things he had requested. Qin Feng selected the items skillfully, snapping up everything up he needed, and refusing anything that Little Son was trying to sell him that he did not need. In the end, he spent 30,000 at the store, pocketing only the remaining 2,000 yuan, which he stuffed into his backpack. Sir, if you wish to come again, you'll be treated as our regular. We can give you a discount for any transaction over 10,000 yuan. This is my communicator's number. You can add me. Little Son said. Qin Feng nodded happily. It would be very convenient to do business with familiar people. After he asked the guy for his real name, Qin Feng added the salesperson named Sun Yu to his contacts. There were very few contacts on his communicator, only about 20 or 30 people, with most of them his schoolmates. But it also kept things clean. After that, Qin Feng turned off his communicator, changed into his new T3 combat suit, armed it with the dagger, and left the store with his brand new bow and arrow strapped to his back. Along the way, Qin Feng could sense the attention that his new suit was drawing. On a hot day in June, just like today, the waterproof and fireproof combat suit could equalize the cold and heat. Even if he were completely wrapped up, it would engulf him with a cool, comfortable temperature, not too hot and airless. The grayish-green camouflage of the suit was a protective color for the wilderness, which was exactly the thing that made him stand out like a sore thumb. His young face might have looked unfledged, but the expression on his face was sang-froid, his sharp eyes darting about for the slightest sign of danger. The crossbow at his waist, the dagger in his boots, and the arrows hidden inside his combat backpack represented absolute power but, at the same time, was also a symbol of money. Qin Feng ignored the strange looks he was getting and flagged down a car. Go to the wilderness dispatch site. The driver shot him a curious look, but when Qin Feng got into the car, he kept his gaze lowered and lips sealed, saying nothing. So, the driver kept quiet, driving silently to the destination. Because of space rifts, the areas outside the colony were treacherous. But they needed people to go out there to hunt, kill, and protect the settlement, which was why the wilderness dispatch site was set up. Over here, Qin Feng's suit was not that conspicuous. Because out here, in fact, everyone was dressed just like that. Chapter 6. The Reed Marsh Frogman. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Qin Feng stepped into a vehicle, and the melodious voice of a woman looped over the loudspeaker. This field trip will go through Xishan, Jukagu, Qinghebei, the Yuanyang ruins, the Changnan colony. All fighters, please take note that after killing ultra beasts in the wilderness dispatch site, you may take any part of the corpses as proof for an exchange in Chinese currency. The targets are herbivorous giant rat, red-eyed jackal, man-eating wisteria, frogman. The automated voice repeating itself above Qin Feng flooded him with sweet nostalgia. It had been a long while since he sat on such a simple and crude collective traveling outdoor combat vehicle. The wild was dangerous not just because the rift could appear anytime, but the place had, in fact, been invaded by alien creatures that had made Mother Earth their lair. To protect the safety of the colony, the leaders had to offer rewards in an attempt to encourage more people to join the operation. More than 20 passengers were on the vehicle, where not a single one came alone, but because they did not know Qin Feng, they thought that he belonged to another team and paid little attention to the newcomer. They paused at each stop, where some got off, and others got on. When they arrived at Qinghebei, Qin Feng moved to stand by the door, hoping to attract as little attention as he could. Another group of people got up as well. It was not apparent in the vehicle, but when the moment they stepped off the car, Qin Feng stood out like a sore thumb. Why are you alone? This place is too dangerous. Why don't you come with us? A soft voice from the 5-girl group chirped when she saw that he was on his own. Yao Yao. One of the girls from her team quickly cut in, eyeing Qin Feng cautiously. This person chose to come out here alone. Chances are he can handle himself pretty well. He may not want to join us. The girl named Yao Yao, as Qin Feng had found out, retorted, that is exactly why I invited him. Yao Yao, you don't even know if he's skillful or not. What if he holds us back? Another guy said, echoing the first's opinion. But Li Yao Yao clearly did not agree with her teammates. Forget it, Yao Yao. That dude's a goner. Another girl tugged Yao Yao by the wrist. People won't care for your kindness. It was only then that the group realized that while they were busy arguing, Qin Feng was already 20 meters ahead of them, hastily disappearing into the giant reed marshes. His quiet scuttle ticked the group off. Now, why was the person like that? Qin Feng did not know what they were thinking, nor did he have the habit of making conversation with strangers. Every once in a while, the people in the wilderness were way scarier than those inside the colony. Qin Feng felt that he was still too inadequate to mingle with the others around here. Moreover, he was in no mood to allow anyone to know about this thing that he needed to do. He stealthily trampled his way through the reeds until he reached the center, careful to make no sound. The edges were both sharp but soft at the same time, meaning they could be pushed aside, but they could also cut. Fortunately, Qin Feng's T3 suit protected him against grazes. Standing inside the reed marsh was like being in a bamboo forest. Like a double-edged sword, the foliage provided him good cover but, at the same time, prevented him from seeing approaching danger. Croak. Qin Feng turned his head sharply towards the direction of the soft croaking sound, eyes squinting. That very moment, a green apparition shot out from among the giant reeds like a rocket. Qin Feng drew his armed crossbow and offset the arrow slightly. He held his breath and then pulled the trigger. Swoosh! With deadly accuracy, the arrow hit the green figure, piercing its skull. Patches of blood and a yellowish-white substance spattered all over the reeds. The green figure fell to the ground with a plop. Now, Qin Feng could go take a closer look. The creature was half the size of a human and looked very much like a frog blown out of proportion. Its hind legs were well developed enough, an indication that it could probably walk upright. Behold, the notorious killer of Qinghe Bay's Reed Marsh, the Frogman. As it was announced on the bus earlier on, this creature was mentioned in the bounty list. Qin Feng walked up to it, carefully carving out the frogman's eye with the dagger. Although frogman flesh tasted pretty good, Qin Feng had other stuff that needed his attention. He could not afford to be lugging around something so bulky. Also, the frogman's blood would serve as bait for other dangerous creatures lurking in the tall shadows. As he placed the eyeball into a sealed jar, he could feel himself absorbing the frogman's energy, strengthening his physical body bit by bit. This is faster than it was in my previous life. Is this its full ability? Maybe. Maybe there are stronger ones which I have yet unearthed. Qin Feng could feel the difference, his bountiful upgrades in strength got him excited. He trounced forward as the reeds got thicker. The croaks were now loud, almost deafening, where a cacophony of staccato howls reached out from the dark. Croak! 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 Qin Feng stood still and fired. Swoosh! Swoosh! 2 arrows shot through the gaps between the giant stalks and hit 2 frogmen who unceremoniously tangled themselves in the reeds. Summer was nigh, and so was mating season for the frogmen. If they were not cleared at this time, once the love rush was over, their numbers would increase exponentially. They would then have to leave their nest and spread out, an unthinkable threat to the colony. Unsurprisingly, these severe consequences to its safety were also mentioned on the bus. Qin Feng walked up to his kills and, again, unconsciously absorbed the energy from the frogmen. He could feel enormous strength coursing through every vein, pulsating his every muscle. It was a lovely feeling, one that Qin Feng had not experienced for so many years. Far too long it was. After all, back at that time, he had not advanced for a long time. After he had received the awakening injection, he became an ability user. But the energy he absorbed was directed toward strengthening his body, so the might he displayed was actually little his own but that of an ancient warrior. If he were to be measured by current assessments, Qin Feng was definitely a G1 tier ancient warrior. After he gouged the eyeballs out, Qin Feng continued to march forward, steady and determined. 3 hours later and he'd already made his way through the slushy reed marshes where the unmistakable, low rumble of rushing waters came to ear. This was it. This was the real Qinghe Bay, real but just as dangerous. Man-eating fishes infested the waters, and the ever-present threat of a crocodile beast made this a forbidden area. Owing to that, the Qingbei colony was unaware that there was a hidden anti-human organization, which also doubled as the organization's underground lab. Qin Feng had not come here for revenge. In his current shape, he needed to build himself up above all else. No, he chose to come here because he believed there was help. Qin Feng strapped on his oxygen tank and goggles, which he had bought at the store earlier. Splosh! Qin Feng jumped into the frigid water. Chapter 7. Dead Giant Beast. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. This part of the river ran real deep. Qin Feng entered the water and was immediately greeted by a peculiar blue-red glow all around him. Those were, without a doubt, toxin deposits, which in turn meant that there were no mutant organisms around this area. The last time he escaped from death, he did not feel a thing. Now, he felt a stinging pain where his skin was exposed to the toxins. He brushed the pain away. Compared to his injuries sustained the last time, this was nothing. Qin Feng moved swiftly in the water. After his recent upgrades and developments, his speed and strength had improved, and he was able to swim freely. In less than 3 minutes, he made it to the bottom of the river where a black hole opened up. It was about 2 meters wide, and even if Qin Feng stood upright, he would still be able to go through it without issue. Calculating his shots, he swam his way inside. The hole tilted upwards. After 10 meters or so diving through the passage, Qin Feng reached the surface of the water. The moment he shut off the oxygen supply, an extremely pungent odor attacked his nostrils. No wonder it reeked in here. He was inside a sewage pipe. This was where he had escaped from the laboratory in his previous life. He remembered that back then, after receiving the awakening injection, Zhou Hao had to carry him out of the research center, which was the place they came face to face with the razor-fanged infants. His friend had been bitten to death, whereas he had to struggle with one of the monsters, leaving him severely injured. But when the razor-fanged infants had died, Qin Feng had assimilated their energy, and those wounds were able to recover quickly. It had been almost unbelievable. When Qin Feng was being diagnosed, a doctor revealed that this could indeed be his special ability after his awakening. After that, when he was leaving the medical tent, he had been attacked and kidnapped. Subsequently, another turmoil transpired in the colony, and in the hullabaloo, no one had noticed the disappearance of a 16-year-old. Just like Zhou Hao's death, it had been merely another unfortunate accident. After that, Qin Feng had been taken into the laboratory where he had been experimented on for hours. Only once had they confirmed that he was really dead, did they dispose of his body in the trash. They had waited for the corpse to decompose, before flinging it into the river and into oblivion. These thoughts drifted through his mind, and before he knew it, he had already reached the end of the tunnel. There was a piece of metal sheet blocking his path. A large human-like palm was wedged, leaving a 30-centimeter gap, big enough for one person to squeeze through. Qin Feng climbed up, pausing to take a look at the giant hand of the creature that had saved him in his previous life. It was a creature about 30 meters long. But right now, it was in a wretched state. Its flesh rotted from its bones, a result of exposure to the toxins. Apart from a claw that was trying to pry the metal sheet open, and another one which broke off and had fallen onto the pile of trash, the rest of the talons were nowhere to be found. From the remaining bits of flesh, Qin Feng concluded that it must have been a furry beast that looked like it had been skinned to the bone. All its innards had been extracted, even leaving the creature without a tail. Both of the creature's eyes had been gouged out, its eyebrows bored into, indicating that the creature's core which amassed its abilities had long been removed. Its flesh and bones were brittle as a result of the infernal experiments, all that was left had no value whatsoever. How did it die? Qin Feng muttered under his breath when he saw the hole the size of a fist. If it was already so severely injured, how did this creature manage to pry open the metal sheet? Wait. Could it be soul energy? But then again. Qin Feng frowned. He had come here today for this giant creature. Back then, when he had been confirmed dead and disposed of in the trash mount, he had fallen on top of this creature and felt his body absorbing energy. The ability was at least 10 times weaker than the time he was awakened just now. After the destructive experiments he had been put through, there was barely anything left of his ability. Even so, the energy that he had absorbed from the creature had brought him back to life. When he had realized that, he crawled out of the opening and escaped death. This meant that the creature had indirectly saved Qin Feng's life. He had wanted dearly to come back after he was reborn to rescue this creature and settle his debt. If he could nurture and grow the beast, it would be undoubtedly powerful enough to destroy the entire Z organization. The creature's dilapidated state, however, was utterly out of his expectation. Qin Feng looked at the time. He was here 10 minutes earlier than he was in his previous life when he was awake. Wait. What is this? Qin Feng noticed that the giant beast's body had suddenly moved as if something was pushing against it. Then, suddenly a bright silver light radiated from the belly of the beast, followed by a wave of spatial fluctuation. After the same experience just a few hours ago, and the many years of conversance with spatial fluctuation, how could Qin Feng not recognize it? Could this space rift be the reason for his rebirth? Strange. It didn't make sense. That opening was too small, even smaller than the one that the razor-fanged infants had climbed out of. While Qin Feng was always on high alert, having experienced the previous life, he did not flee but instead reached out and pushed the giant corpse. The silver halo of light looking about the size of a DVD rose into the air. Space passage. The difference between a space passage and a spatial rift was that the latter was unstable and could collapse at any given time, while the former was stable and mostly man-made. A moment after the passage had opened, it spat out a red ovoid object around half the size of a human fist and disappeared in a flash. Qin Feng let his gaze follow the thing that had fallen out of the passage. Apparently, it was an irregularly shaped egg, or perhaps, more precisely, an afterbirth. Wrapped within the translucent placental expulsion was a creature as tiny as a scrawny puppy. Qin Feng could sense that the little puppy's vital signs were steady, thanks to the shell-like encapsulation cloaking its precious cargo. In his mind, everything was starting to line up. Perhaps, the energy that I absorbed back then came from this little thing. Qin Feng had fallen down and landed on top of the giant beast, which was why he had mistakenly assumed that it was the giant beast's energy that saved him. Hello, little one. From now on, I'll look after you. Let's exact revenge together. Qin Feng picked up the afterbirth and gently placed it in a waterproof compartment in his backpack. Suddenly, a deafening mechanical sound peeled the silence of his surroundings. Above him, a sharp blade was descending. Evidently, before the garbage was disposed of, everything was to be minced. Don't worry. I will take good care of your child. Qin Feng promised the carcass of the gargantuan creature. As he stepped through the gap, watery blood trickled down the eyes of the slain alien beast as if crying. Whir. The blender whirred at a terrifying speed, pulverizing everything it touched. Chapter 8. Element Core. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Qin Feng climbed out of the passage, and the sharp, burning pain stung his skin once again as the toxic liquid made contact with his body. But it did not bother him. He continued swimming towards the shore, even killing a bunch of frogmen on his way back until he reached shallower waters. The toxic scum from the laboratory did not reach this part of the river, so it was supposedly clear and safe from pollution. When the spatial rifts started appearing, and the humans ungraciously forced down the food chain, factories had no choice but to shut down. Within centuries, the earth was covered in lush green foliage, and pollution decreased drastically, probably a good thing for Mother Earth. Qin Feng washed his hands, face, and neck in the clean water. Fortunately, his body was unaffected. If the T3 suit did not have this protective function, it would not have been worth its asking price. Once he had cleaned up, Qin Feng unzipped his bag and removed the afterbirth one with the little creature still inside. Perhaps it was because it was away from the space passage, that the little thing regained its vitality. Qin Feng could see, very clearly, every breath it inhaled. The translucent liquid in the placental expulsion gradually disappeared into its mouth, slowly wringing its little capsule and sucking up energy. In less than an hour, it might even hatch. Qin Feng checked the time and saw that it was already 8 at night. No cars traversed the wilderness at this hour, and the base was by now securely locked down. He would have to spend the night here. He walked around, soon finding a place sheltered from the wind. He was careful to sprinkle some beast-repellent powder around the area to keep particular low-tier creatures away with its caustic smell. As for space rifts, though they may appear effortlessly, the chances of them occurring was not very high. The only exception here was that every time they appeared, they were often almost inevitably destructive. From what he could remember, on this night of which he escaped death, there were no spatial rifts. If that was the case, it should not be a problem for him to spend one night out here in the open wilderness. Looking back, Qin Feng had one too many experiences sleeping rough all alone in the wilderness. He hurriedly gobbled down some compressed biscuits, slowly settling down on the earth, legs crossed, and acknowledging the whispering quiet of his inner world. Slowly, Qin Feng relaxed, and his breathing slowed. It was as if he was no longer in this world. It was completely dark in his mind. It was then when a crystalline diamond suddenly appeared in his perception. From afar, the diamond looked infinitesimal. But as Qin Feng thought about getting closer, the diamond began to expand. It felt as if he was floating in the darkness of deep space, and along his line of sight was a brilliant star, continuously expanding in his eyes. It was very much like a diamond planet. No one could tell how big it really was, and all around this transparent planet was a faint halo of smog circling it. Ability Core. Qin Feng gasped. In the last life, his talent was destroyed, and no matter how hard he tried to manifest it in his thoughts, he could not sense the ability core that all the ability users were talking about. Now, it was clear. This diamond planet only existed in the ability core within the human consciousness. This was the first time he could see his own ability core, in its whole complete and unscathed glory. It was big and robust, quietly levitating in the darkness, intensely brilliant and blinding. Qin Feng controlled his excitement, carefully reaching out to it again. This diamond planet was not completely clear, as a black light actually lay at its core, dark and deep like a whirlpool that could suck in all forms of matter. This is my innate absorbing ability. From the looks of it, it's really powerful. Sensing this ability brought Qin Feng back to the time before his rebirth, when his ability core was destroyed, leaving only this black nucleus, which gave him the ability to absorb. The only thing was that he could never be an ability user again, and had to use this ability to become an ancient warrior. My absorbing ability is black. Could that mean that I am a dark ability user? To this day, there were 10 types of abilities among ability users, where some were weak and some strong. Their respective probability of awakening was very high. It consisted of 5 ordinary element abilities, namely metal, wood, water, fire, earth. Special abilities included wind, thunder, ice, and the 2 extremely rare abilities of light and darkness. Who would have known that his ability would be darkness? Qin Feng's mind began to wander as his consciousness began to ease, and the bright star gradually moved further away until it was just a tiny speck in the darkness. He slowly opened his eyes, looking as if he had just returned from a long journey. Although the darkness disappeared and he had already left his subconscious, his mind was extremely exhausted. My consciousness is too weak. Qin Feng furrowed his brows. Consciousness was one of the required strengths to control a user's special ability. Even if he practiced the ancient warrior's ability, his inner force's development would require him to have better control of his subconsciousness as well. He would need to keep practicing it until he genuinely mastered its art. Chirp. Chirp. The voice sounded frail. Qin Feng turned around to look for the source of the noise, immediately drawn to his sleeping bag. He unzipped his sleeping bag and lo and behold, a creature lay squirming on the thin mat. It was the little beast that he had rescued. It had chewed through its afterbirth, eating nearly half of it, leaving remnants of goo dangling from its hind legs. That stuff would dry up soon enough. Chirp. Chirp. The little creature called out, eyes still shut and mouth opened wide as if looking for something to eat. Qin Feng took out a tube of nutrient jelly, which had a strong remedy effect. He initially planned to use these to help the giant beast recover some of its strength, but instead, he was now giving them to its offspring. The little creature clung to the plastic tube and began to suckle hungrily. Qin Feng looked down at the meek little thing and smiled, the tension in his shoulders eased and, his heart began to soften. After that, he produced a towel, wet it lightly with water, put it against his body to warm it, and wiped the little beast. Never had he ever been so gentle before. Not even with his own brothers and women, neither in the previous life nor this life. Undoubtedly, it was because those people were strong enough not to need it in the first place. After he had dried the tiny body, the little beast's appearance changed slightly. As the blood-stained fur was exposed to air, it dried up, and in its place, white fur sprouted. "I'll call you Xiao Bai." Terrible at naming things, Qin Feng decided not to trouble himself and christened the little beast. Like it or hate it, the newborn did not possess the ability to refuse names given to it. It merely chirped twice, drank up until it was full before falling into a deep slumber. Qin Feng crawled into his sleeping bag, placing the little beast on top of his chest to avoid crushing it. Even though his eyes were shut, he was only 30% asleep but 70% awake. It became second nature to achieve such feats since he had already spent a great deal of time in the wilderness previously. While he was in this semi-awoken state, a noise in the dark drifted to his ears. Qin Feng's eyes immediately popped open. Quickly getting to his feet, he placed Xiao Bai into his shirt pocket, hurriedly rolled up the mat, and stuffed it into the combat backpack. It only took him 10 seconds to get all of that done. From afar, the soulful howling of wolves pierced the stoic night. Suddenly, several figures were seen scampering frantically toward him. Chapter 9. Rich Gunner, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, run. Hurry. Li Yao Yao kept repeating these words in her mind as if to give herself some strength. But as energy quickly drained from her body, she started to slow down. From the very beginning, she was not a physically fit ancient warrior. In front of her, Wang Kai, Jiang Wenxuan, and Yuhai's silhouette began to blur into the distance. They were way faster and much further ahead of her. They were running for their fragile lives, not daring even to look back. Just when Li Yao Yao was about to give up, a wispy voice called out, "Yao Yao. Run. I will distract them." Meng Meng. Li Yao Yao turned around and saw that Lu Meng had stopped running. Her petite 1.5-meter frame suddenly looked really tall. Lu Meng opened the space receptacle, and a machine fell out, landing on the ground with a loud boom. Click. Clack. Click. Clack. The gears on the machine moved, a cold sheen reflecting off its surface under the silvery glow of the moonlight. The T9 assault tower had been hastily assembled, equipped with a large Gatling gun with 9 muzzles the size of a grinding wheels armed with a honeycomb of bullets. Pow! 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 Bullets whizzed by, and bright muzzle flashes woke the dark wilderness. In the shadows of the night, a red radiance let out a long, high-pitched cry. Clearly, scary weaponry like this was bound to inflict some severe damage on the enemy. Qin Feng, hoping to take advantage of the darkness to stay out of sight, cursed under his breath as he darted to a large tree behind him to avoid getting caught in the middle of a firefight. Qin Feng recognized that the people being chased were the 5 students he'd encountered earlier today. He could not believe that they would have such bad luck. Merely too ostentatious were they, perhaps. How did they manage to draw a pack of jackals on their first night here? But it was just a regular jackal pack though. With the girl named Meng Meng's T9 assault tower, it should be a reasonably easy task to get rid of them. That nouveau riche. Qin Feng was observing Lu Meng in the darkness. A big machine like that needed to be transported by a tactical van. It was supposed to be a team machine that cost over 2 million for one, not mentioning it required a vast amount of ammunition. But, that was nothing compared to the space receptacle whereby 1 cubic meter was worth a good 5 million. The fact that she was able to fit a T9 assault tower inside meant that it was surely upwards of 1 cubic meter. Qin Feng was deciding on whether he should wait for them to die before taking it for himself when a giant creature suddenly came into view. The monster was 2 meters tall, its giant body was shaped like an ordinary, non-mutated bull. However, this one had a coal-black hide, bloodshot eyes, and sharp snow-white fangs that glinted in the night. Beast. General Tier. Neapolitan Mastiff, exclaimed Qin Feng when he saw the creature's true form and immediately recognized it. There were always some species of powerful beasts among the common ultra beasts. Labeled differently according to their strength, their kind saw beast soldiers, beast generals, and the beast kings among their hierarchy. Beast soldiers were like the elites among humans and, with effort, could be easily killed. But beast generals, on the other hand, were commanders among the monsters. This Neapolitan Mastiff had already reached a beast. General tier. No wonder these people were hysterical. The assault tower spat out bullets like a hurricane, yet it was unable to inflict any damage on the creature, the beast was too fast. Whoosh! The Neapolitan Mastiff was no less intelligent than a human, quickly making its way behind Lu Meng to evade the bullets and simultaneously reaching out its claws towards Lu Meng. No! Li Yaoyao screamed. The elements in the environment vibrated violently, and a ripple of water appeared, forming a wall of water behind Lu Meng. The hound's sharp claws tore through the fragile protection, slicing down his back with great fury. Screech! Lu Meng's jacket was torn, revealing a thin silver garment underneath, which was apparently very strong as it seemed to be intact, allowing it to protect its wearer. However, the force of the strike threw Lu Meng into the air. That alone was enough to cause her serious injuries. Then, the creature ignored Li Yaoyao and charged towards Lu Meng like a mindless beast locked onto its prey and nothing else. Ah, forget it. Qin Feng sighed. Ultimately, he was not some cold-blooded murderer. This girl was not very powerful, but yet, she attempted to fend off the monster to buy her friend some time, reminding Qin Feng of Zhou Hao's camaraderie. True friendship was indeed invaluable. He had enough. Qin Feng decided to get involved. Swish! An arrow shot off his crossbow, headed towards the Neapolitan Mastiff at an extremely tricky angle. In its hunt for food, the Neapolitan Mastiff had not taken into account random arrows that came out of nowhere. The shot may not be lethal, but if it was unable to avoid it, the arrow would surely puncture its eye. The beast swerved to the side to dodge the incoming spine and, in doing so, missing the chance to pounce on Lu Meng. Qin Feng did not stop there and, instead, released a second arrow. Swoosh! This one, too, had its sights set on the Neapolitan Mastiff's eyes. This time, however, the beast could not evade it. The moment he dodged the first arrow, he had unwittingly stepped into Qin Feng's trap. The Neapolitan Mastiff wailed in pain as the arrow impaled its eye. It winced and flinched for a moment, then became mad. Raving mad. Bam! The creature sprang forward in a tormented rage and rammed itself against the tree that Qin Feng was hiding behind. Against all odds, Qin Feng had already escaped to another tree. Being attacked by a wild beast was no short of a petrifying experience. While avoiding a head-on confrontation with the Neapolitan Mastiff, Qin Feng kept shooting at it, taunting the monster with each provoking arrow. This was his experience in the previous life. This was his best combat technique. When Lu Meng, who thought that this was going to be her last day for sure, saw someone coming to her rescue, she could not help but let relief drown her as she had escaped death. She now began to feel hopeful. But this hope quickly turned into despair again. The arrows only served to slow the beast, which was still advancing towards its attacker. Qin Feng was forced to retreat, closing in the distance between the two of them. Now, it looked like the beast would surely catch up to him and rip him apart. Both Lu Meng and Li Yaoyao recognized him, the guy who came down the car with them. He was only armed with simple weaponry, and there was no ability user medal on his chest, almost certainly not powerful enough to stop the Ultra Beast. Then, all of a sudden, Qin Feng leaped into the air. Lu Meng's eyes widened. Is he going to? Before she could even think about it, Qin Feng was already standing on top of the T9 assault tower. Unrealizing of his location, Qin Feng, who had been running away from the Neapolitan Mastiff, had drawn near to the assault tower. He meant to control this powerful gun. Ever since the appearance of the space rift, humanity had experienced not only destruction but also evolution. Ability users and ancient warriors began to emerge. But the majority of people were the gunners. Gunners used strengthening potions to improve their strengths, then relied on machines to perform their destructive attacks. Even though their power would never match up to that of the ability users and ancient warriors, their low threshold and high numbers were like the mass-produced grains that kept human beings alive. Under such circumstances, the continuous development of machines, and the occurrence of all sorts of energy from space rifts lead to a breakthrough in machinery. Chapter 10. Destroy the Beast General. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The gunners also had pronounced weaknesses. When it came to their reaction, speed, and strength, they would always be inferior to ability users and ancient warriors. No. There's no way he can do it. What she was about to witness would leave her shocked. Just like the arrows, Qin Feng triggered the assault cannon, pelting the Neapolitan Mastiff with a hail of bullets. Pow! 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 When the smoke and gunpowder cleared, the Neapolitan Mastiff was clearly maimed by the relentless shelling. Aouh! The Neapolitan Mastiff howled as it was sent flying into the air. Unlike Lu Meng, Qin Feng did not keep his finger on the trigger unremittingly. It was always twisting the nozzle with a click, raising it a little, and then a steady pull. With no mercy whatsoever, another shower of bullets flooded the Neapolitan Mastiff, piercing the most vulnerable part of its body, its abdomen, and punching holes into its vital organs. Just like that, with 2 attacks, the Neapolitan Mastiff was severely wounded. Aouh! The Neapolitan Mastiff fell from the sky, howling soulfully as if its end was near. Although the injuries inflicted on him were not deadly for now, if the fight were to continue, it would surely die. So, it called out, signaling for its pack. One by one, pairs of glowing red eyes began to flicker in the dense forest. Red-eyed jackals. When the Neapolitan Mastiff was hunting its prey, they were watching by the side, not participating lest the Beast General might think that they were going for its food. Now that they were allowed to join the hunt, their crimson eyes were practically dripping with blood, mouths drooling to the ground as they glared at Qin Feng, eager to tear into him. Come on then. Qin Feng deftly grabbed onto the assault tower. It would seem the assault cannon had a spirit of its own, as it mimicked his movements and ferociously shredded the jackals into pieces. Qin Feng noticed a pair of red eyes before one of the jackals even made a move, and pulled the trigger. In a blink of an eye, the jackal was pattered with over 20 bullets. Aouh! The smell of blood set off the pack of jackals, with 3 of them charging directly towards their assailant. Qin Feng shifted the assault tower and sent bullets flying everywhere again. Fight them off. Fight them off again. Come and help me reload the cannon if you are still breathing. Qin Feng's icy tone muddled between the deafening shots. Lu Meng suddenly snapped out of her daze and crawled to Qin Feng while trying to bear the pain. Li Yaoyao quickly ran to her friend and tended to her wound. But her eyes were glued on Qin Feng. That young man looked so calm, and besides, there was a charm about him. Swoosh! Rows of ammunition were being loaded into the weapon. Lu Meng watched Qin Feng's antics in amusement, that precision, that skill, it was mesmerizing. Qin Feng finished shooting one last round and then stopped. When Lu Meng saw that he had ceased fire, she panicked. What is it? Why did you stop? You ran out of ammo. Qin Feng turned to look Lu Meng in the eye. They're all dead. We'll split the loot between us. The Neapolitan Mastiff is mine. Lu Meng looked around and saw the lifeless red-eyed jackals scattered all over the field. The nightmare that was pursuing them was now already dead. They're all dead. Lu Meng's eyes widened. Qin Feng ignored the naive little girl and was already standing over the corpses, absorbing the energy into his body, which was supposed to strengthen him and increase his speed. When as he walked up to the Neapolitan Mastiff, a massive wave of energy shocked him. Buzz! Qin Feng felt his surroundings tremble, and his strength got a substantial unexpected boost. G2 tier. If he told anyone, at all, that on the second day of his awakening, he had risen to 2 tiers without any potions, their jaws would have fallen to their feet. That was Qin Feng's ability, however. This ability that awakened only a minute after the injection could potentially reach S tier. Right now, however, Qin Feng still had not mastered this special ability, having not honed himself to exploit it to its fullest. Qin Feng suppressed his newly acquired as a measure for discretion and began to collect his loot. The red-eyed jackal's fur and sharp claws were materials that could be sold. Ultimately, to make the exchange with Qingbei colony's officials, he needed to cut out the ears of the red-eyed jackals. But 40 over red-eyed jackals could definitely not compare to one Neapolitan Mastiff. Now that was a beast general. Qin Feng carved into the Neapolitan Mastiff's body with his dagger, expertly removing its pelt, teeth, and claws. The most important part was actually located at the center of the creature's chest, near the heart. Squirt. Fresh blood splattered as the muscles were quickly sliced. After the ribs were removed, what looked like a spherical red bead was revealed. Neapolitan Mastiffs were categorized as beast generals because of this energy core in its body, the source of energy for its awakened speed and strength. Most of these were located next to the heart. This red bead could be used directly to enhance its physique and was many times stronger than G-tier strengthening potions. Qin Feng pocketed the bead, then squeezed the remainder of the materials into his backpack. That was only one Neapolitan Mastiff's worth, and yet his backpack was now fully stuffed. On the other side of the field, Lu Meng and Li Meng looked as pale as ghosts. When Lu Meng saw the insides of the sliced corpse, she nearly threw up the meal she had last night. If it weren't for you, I would have been dead. I still haven't thanked you yet. Please take all of these with you. Lu Meng protested. She was never one to stand the sight of blood from dissecting corpses. Qin Feng glanced at Lu Meng and answered, unreserved, sure. He was, in fact, about to give the rest to her to minimize her losses, but it seemed like she did not care anyway. Materials from these red-eyed jackals were not even worth nearly as much as the bullets used tonight. Right now, Qin Feng needed to create some fortune. After all, he had just been reborn. While he might not have been very successful in his previous life, he was at least a valiant mercenary who had fought hundreds of battles, and one who did not lack money either. Currently, he was poor as a pauper and needed a lot of resources to support his training. He dragged all the red-eyed jackals to a pile and then removed their nails and ears. As their coats were too tattered, he did not collect them. After a few minutes, Qin Feng had bagged all the materials gathered into his sleeping bag. That thing was nothing very valuable anyway. Even if there were bloodstains on it, he could just replace it with a new one. Once he was done, he turned around and saw the frightened Lu Meng and Li Yaoyao shuddering on the ground, looking very lost and exhausted. The sun was rising, and the skies were bright. This meant that the vehicles would start making rounds soon, and they could finally return home. Qin Feng tied up his sleeping bag and looked around to determine the direction they should head. Come with me, let's get back to the colony. Qin Feng said, dragging the sleeping bag behind him. Thank you. Thank you. Li Yao Yao quickly said. She was truly grateful that Qin Feng had helped them and, for the most part, kept them alive to see another day.